Chapter 65, The Prelude to Disaster. King Adamarisu of Pharma's kingdom frowned as he received his report. There have been changes in the trade status quo surrounding the Pharma's kingdom. Originally, the profits and losses of trade will take up to a year or even longer before it's certain, but this time the changes are much too abrupt. Due to its location, the Pharma's kingdom can be considered as the main trading partner of the Dwarven kingdom. Without the need to traverse hazardous terrain, it is advantageous for direct transactions. Therefore, a great deal of profit was earned by selling the imported goods after implementing high taxes. But simply selling goods to foreign kingdoms is hardly enough to be satisfied about. If the imported goods were to be solely sold within the country, withholding foreign trades, that would further increase profits, and such a decision was made after listening to the advice of the Minister of Economical Affairs. As expected, at first there was an increase in the number of adventurers into the country, plus the sales and revenues also increased. But in a month, sales started to show signs of recession, and an investigation of the cause was immediately ordered. The damages are not only limited to imported goods. Foreign merchants who came to buy goods and adventurers who came to stay disappeared altogether. Adventurers staying in the city affect the revenues of shops and inns, making this situation something that cannot be ignored. This isn't a problem one can afford to simply wait and see. When their report was brought forth, it was a shocking one. It seems like a new city has appeared in the Great Jura Forest. In addition, it's inhabited by monsters. And that's the situation. This is simply absurd. When Valdora disappeared, the spike in monster activity had been a cause for concern. Many monsters live in the Great Jura Forest. Comparatively, the threat level of the monsters have been relatively low, even though there are monsters that exceed B rank amongst them. Making a town in such a dangerous place, how much combat force is required? Even defending the surrounding villages and towns within the monster habitats requires a lot of tax money invested into it. Moreover, monsters living in a town is an unprecedented phenomenon. This is a phenomenon of monsters founding a country. Who could possibly believe this? However, there were reports of goblin tribes evolving into a human-like physique, figures that looked like orcs and whatnots. In the report, they've all evolved into the species called hobgoblins. By now, the goblins are already quite close to humans, even engaging in business while speaking the human language. That's not all. There are also orcs and high orcs with knowledge and technique of organizing work core to establish and maintain roads. This is an absurd story, no matter how one thinks about it. How many years would it take even for a single individual to evolve? Of course, due to the magnitude of the subject, this is something that must be dealt with immediately. News about an entire group evolving, this is something that is unheard of for centuries. Of course, I didn't doubt that the spies would lie. But that's not the problem here. The main issue is a city has appeared out of nowhere. Directly through the Great Jura Forest, with a route directly connecting the Dwarven Kingdom and the small country Vermund is formed. Moreover, the safety of the trade route is guaranteed. This is something that can't be neglected. After all, if this route is permitted, the geological advantage the Pharma's kingdom possessed is lost. For the Pharma's kingdom, which mainly relies on trade for income, this is a matter of life and death. Due to the neighboring Dwarven kingdom being an excellent industrial kingdom, the local level of industry is low. There are no local specialties, and there aren't any resources able to be processed. The local agriculture is at a level when the people wouldn't starve, but the tax gained wouldn't be enough to cover the national spending. Tourism and trade being its main pillars, it's a country where tariffs are high. Until now, thanks to threat Valdora posed, the trade route through the Pharma's kingdom had made it prosper. The disappearance of Valdora after 300 years was not predicted. Thus, measures for the future as a country haven't been well looked into yet. Now then, what happens now? There isn't anyone who could answer the king. Currently, in a place where an emergency meeting conference commenced, similar reports are announced to each member. The people gathered here are all upper-class nobles involved in the management of the state, whose wealth is deeply routed to the central. Everyone present knew more than anyone that, if the kingdom couldn't secure the benefits of trading with the Dwarven kingdom, the national power of the kingdom will fall. Although no one answered, there's an answer. However, whoever says it will have to burden all the responsibility. Adding that to the equation, this isn't something that could be said. Let's invade and destroy the city. Those are the words. Even with the collective effort of the country, the most number of troops that can be mobilized is on a scale of about 100,000 people. However, against an evolved monster, an ordinary soldier is useless. A trained knight or a mercenary will be necessary. This isn't a war between humans. If you want to mobilize to defeat the opponent, this isn't something amateurs can handle. All they want is to avoid increasing the amount of people who will die in vain. So out of the 100,000 soldiers, those with actual combat experiences via skirmishes number about 20,000. Mercenaries make up the majority of that number. The knight belonging to this country is 10,000 at most. This number includes all of the knights in the region. When it comes to those who will actually rally to the king's orders are 5,000 at most. The numbers in the monsters' country seem to amount to around 10,000, but there might be some away doing construction. Tennessee, dramatic irony, there's around 165,000. In addition, if you consider a 1 versus 1 battle scenario, you'll need to factor in the quality of equipment. In addition, you should also consider the female fighting force as well. With that said, subduing the monsters with only regional knights will be difficult. For a decisive victory, at least 10,000 experienced soldiers must be prepared. In this place, whoever suggests the attack will have to carry the burden of the fund, should the combat forces be insufficient. No one wants to miss out on the benefits, but carrying the burden of the losses is also undesirable. The people gathered here all had that mindset. The king could easily decipher the thoughts of the upper-class nobles. Factors that will secure victory are combat forces and war funds. In addition, the adventurers staying in the monsters' city are something that can't be neglected. He'll need to cooperate with a friend to work this out. No one is going to support them if there aren't any benefits. However, what if it's assumed there are benefits? After eliminating the monsters in the city and recognizing their right to govern the city, there wouldn't be any sense of unethicality ruling over the monsters. Monster slavery isn't uncommon. Eradicating the problematic city and enslaving the surviving monsters. In addition, the city can be incorporated into the country's territory. In doing so, the Farmer's Kingdom will obtain new land, and they might even obtain the blessings of the Great Jura Forest. Adding to that, the defenses can also be left to the monsters. The council doesn't allow human slavery, but they wouldn't complain if they're monsters. There's also the income to be earned from opening up new trade routes. It's chock full of good benefits. Above all, there was something that fascinated the king. It is silk, a sample of it was obtained from the town, and he had never felt anything like it before. Comparing it to magic fiber or hemp cloths is a presumptuous act. Analysis results show that it appears to be a fabric woven from the cocoons of hell moths. Hell moths are extremely dangerous monsters, even though the materials aren't limited to the cocoon. However, in reality, no one could believe there being an even better fabric than the one at hand. With whatever means necessary, the manufacturing method must be obtained. With the manufacturing method, this could be the country's specialty. This and that, if the city was to be conquered, those benefits will be obtainable. Involuntarily, it's likely the desperation of the king has distorted his face with desire. The problem is the subjugation itself. Regarding this matter, the king had a plan. He had already contacted Cardinal Nicholas Spertus of the church previously. An urgent emergency magic letter was sent via magic communication between countries. The contents of the letter was regarding the monster country. The letter was written meticulously in hopes of not causing trouble to the church and persuading them to take care of the problem. Even King Adamarisu is acquainted to Cardinal Nicholas. He is a shrewd man who would do anything that would give him profits, as long as it doesn't depreciate the church. Such a man usually thinks for his own benefits. Thinking from his perspective is natural. In the letter, it was also written that for any further consultation would require sending messengers. It appears he may be a monster expert. The king couldn't hide his surprise actually, the church wouldn't move, as long as it's not a big threat. When you think about it, whether it is conceivable for a monster town to be recognized as a threat, or, at that point, King Adamarisu thought about everything. The church's raison d'etre is the belief that humans and monsters don't get along well. With assent, the plans for how to proceed has been thought up. For the church, would there be enough justification to subjugate monsters that do no harm to humans? However, what if there is a nation that's asking for help? They would be able to launch a punitive force in a triumphant manner. I see, so that was the aim of Cardinal Nicholas, and so King Adamarisu was convinced. If the church can compensate for the lack of manpower in his own country, this can be a winning battle. Moreover, with the support of the church, this could be a holy war. Tennessee? I knew it. After reading chapter 59, I knew this would happen. Holy my arse. Ed, predictions by a bear. Next time don't get an octopus to predict the results of the World Cup, get a bear instead. And by leading this war, and gaining the honor of leading the holy war to victory, this is something I must grasp. By doing so, I can secure my foundations and also suppress the positions of the upper-class nobles. However, it is vital that there be a way to make it inexcusable for me to lead this strategy. This meeting is a farce for that. Looking the upper nobles one more time, confirming that none of they are trying to speak up. Now, I was able to make myself the heir to go along with this. I'll strike when the time is right. Although I wanted to ask each lord if the burden is too much, and I said that as if I wanted to discontinue my words, Your Majesty, pardon me for my rudeness. It seems the monster town has started business with the adventurers. And supporting this from the shadows is the Burman Kingdom. If that's the case, if we were to attack the city, the neighboring countries will not look kindly upon us. That's right. Moreover, they have the support of the dwarf blacksmiths and are now polishing their own technology. If we rallied our troops, the eyes of the neighboring countries will also be watching. Two nobles stated their objections. Marquis Muller of the Farmer's Kingdom is a part of the noble faction with Earl Herman as his follower. The king wanted to click his tongue, but he endures. Then what do you propose we do? Thus, I asked the two men. Even with the other countries watching, when we got the church's backing, I can come out with a bang. However, if I tell them that here, the benefit-seeking nobles will be interested in the subjugation and will strive to lead, that town will be under the direct jurisdiction of the king. The wealth that will be generated in there, there's no way he's going to divide it up with the nobles. The two people who were asked looked at each other. Why don't we send a messenger? If we communicate with that city, the menace of the monsters will recede. Certainly, we can have benefits from short-term trades. Then, we gain tax from defending tourist locations when people from other countries come along for tourism. In addition, if the safety is even more appealed, trade with the Dwarven Kingdom will become even more prosperous. Marquis Muller, as the representative, replied. Earl Herman also nodded in response to show his support. Certainly, there is some truth. When Valdora disappeared, we can just take over the defenses like what we've done at home. This is a welcoming idea, there's no reason to crush it. But, if they're building trade routes, the fact they snatched the interest of our country is a different story. Marcus Muller and Earl Herman has concerns about the forest defenses since their territory is bordering the forest. In addition, Marquis Muller's territory is also bordering Burman, so they have a good relationship. With these reasons, that's probably why they were against the monster subjugation. Although, he might have received bribes from Burman, however, one way or another, the decision was made. Since he's already the king, the future is in his hands. This had already filled his head with fame and fortune. I understand your reasons. However, I ask you, can you trust a monster? In the future, if the monsters suddenly attacked, who will take responsibility? Will you, perhaps, take responsibility? Your dear people, their lives and properties, will you protect them all? The other party is a monster. They aren't meant to coexist with us humans whose thoughts they can't comprehend. Think about it hard. Has your thoughtlessness passed? Such was asked with the intent to intimidate with oppression. I asked the two men, but their faces simply paled, being unable to reply. That's natural. They are only humans, they can only trust each other that much as partners. The king of the other party could be a fake, signing a contract with a body double would be a bad decision. If I trust them, once everything is over there will be no going back. If I sympathize with the monsters, I would be on edge about what might happen afterwards. I knew from reading the report that the representative was a good-natured fellow, but it doesn't seem like it's listed anywhere in the reports. A little trick was used to lure out any opposition. Even if someone opposes, everything's already decided. Making sure there aren't any more oppositions, the king makes his move. Thus, in the name of the Farmer's Kingdom, in order to subjugate the monster city known as Tempest, an army will be raised. After the upper-class nobles have left, the varlet returned accompanied by a man. The man's name, Rahumi. It was the messenger whom Cardinal Nicholas sent. As expected, you have arrived, Messenger Dono. Today, we have decided to raise an army. That's very good. Cardinal will also be pleased. There were some nobles who voiced their opposition, however they were quelled in the end. This was to be expected. However, someone willing to protect the monsters, this is unexpected enough. Will you take care of such a person? And, no, and I don't have the power. For such a thing, after greeting one another, the king brought up the main topic. Unexpectedly, the messenger had a pair of profound pupils that are like a bottomless pit. Glimpses of lunacy and an indescribable chill can be felt when one looks him in the eye. As to raising the army of the Pharma's kingdom, the church promised to see to reinforcement and aid. That was all that was exchanged with the messenger. The messenger accepted this as a formal request. The church will dispatch troops dedicated to monster subjugation. In terms of battle prowess, there were 3,000 professional monster exterminators. In addition, they will also make a special exception and send out 1,000 knights associated with the church. The church knights will have magic swords as standard equipment, especially effective against monsters. There were also many excellent individuals amongst the anti-monster unit sent to assist. Even evolved monster groups will be reduced to nothing but a disorderly mob under their might. Although their numbers are similar, the difference in quality is like a free player compared to a paid player. Ed was about to put console compared to PC, but realized I would be pelted to death. Tennessee, you must be quite the gamer despite your elegant appearance, Yuka-sen. King Adamarisu King is relieved to have such strong combat forces. There were 5,000 of his own knights and 4,000 from the church alongside them. Perhaps the mercenaries employed will not be below 3,000. Totaling the numbers, soldiers specialized in combat has become equal or more than 12,000. If you include in the females and the monster soldiers, there's approximately 10,000 more. Now then, when this demon subjugation crusade is all over, he can probably have his way with his fame as the hero king. He will probably need to increase the donations sent to the church, but it's a cheap price considering the profits he will soon have at hand. The secret conversion between the king and the messenger continued onwards extensively. Due to the flames of jealousy, his ambitions and desires, the brakes on his greed has ceased to work. A great evil will soon envelop Tempest.